tell you what he's recently signed into law. It is a bill that bans schools from notifying parents about student gender identity. So we knew this was coming. We have been speaking to parents. I get messages all the time. Well, in California, we're not allowed to say no to vaccines. Okay, that means that the state is in control of your children. If they can decide what they're going to inject into your child and you have no say, they're in control. Well, now you don't even get to decide whether or not your child, who you know to be a boy or a girl, because you birthed them, is going to be referred to as a boy or a girl as they indoctrinate them in the public school system. So let me cut to this video of Michael Schellenberger describing exactly what is going on with this bill. Take a listen.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. I'm afraid I have some terrible news. The governor of America's largest and richest state has just signed a law that puts 10 million children and adolescents in grave danger of medical mistreatment. The media headlines are all wrong. They claim that California Governor Gavin Newsom's new law protects children by stopping public schools from outing their gender to their parents. In fact, it does just the opposite of that. This new law makes children vulnerable to irreversible and lifelong medical abuse and mistreatment. And it's all based on a pseudoscientific idea that some children are born into the wrong bodies and that we can change a person's sex through drugs and surgery. Now, for any of this to make sense, you have to understand what's happening right now in Britain. Several years ago, the government there appointed a well-respected pediatrician named Hilary Cass to investigate whether it was ethical to block the puberty of children, give them opposite-sex hormones, and perform surgeries on their bodies in an effort to make them feel better about their gender. Dr. Cass came back a few weeks ago and said, no, absolutely not. Around the same time, the British government banned puberty blockers nationwide. And just a few days ago, the new Labour Party government affirmed that it would maintain the former Conservative government's ban on puberty blockers. In her report, Cass said that so-called social transition, where a child adopts the identity of the opposite sex, is not a neutral act and has psychological consequences. In fact, it's the first step towards medical intervention. What Gavin Newsom has done is actively prevented schools from informing parents that their children have been put on a medical pathway. This is an outrageous attack on both the rights of the children and the parents. Children have a right to go through puberty. No adult should be able to block their puberty. And parents have a right to know if their children thinks that they are the opposite sex or were born into the wrong body. We have seen with leaked internal documents from the leading gender medicine group, WPATH, that these medical interventions, namely puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries, are not only irreversible, but result in sterilization and loss of sexual function. Children and adolescents are simply not mature enough to understand the effects of so-called gender-affirming care. They cannot, in other words, give their informed consent. The new law that Gavin Newsom just signed creates the grave risk that activist teachers, students, and outside groups will convince children that they were born into the wrong body and then hide their social transition from parents, which will lead to these harmful medical mistreatments. As such, the law that was passed is the opposite of what both children and their parents need. We need schools to immediately warn parents if their children think they are the opposite sex. After all, this is a diagnosable psychiatric condition known as gender dysphoria. And if your child has a psychiatric disorder, whether it's anxiety, depression, an eating disorder, or gender dysphoria, you as a parent have a right to know. And schools must stop teaching children or allowing other people to teach children this pseudoscientific and dehumanizing ideas that it's possible to be born in the wrong body and that it's possible to change one's sex. It's not. As such, either the legislature, the courts, or a ballot initiative in California is required to nullify this law. Until then, it's important to spread the word to parents that California public schools are fundamentally unsafe for the millions of children who currently attend them.
So this is obviously insane, and it